So moving on, let's talk a little bit about Star Wars. And WTF is Ahsoka. So one of the interesting creative choices that Lucasfilm seems to be making here is that they're taking a character that if you haven't watched any of the cartoons, you have no idea who it is. And they're giving her her own show and kind of like adding her into the mix here. And with the show premiering next Wednesday, I thought it'd be interesting to kind of go through who this character is and what people need to know about the show before it actually happens. So Matt Bader, you're our resident kind of like Filoni expert on Can you give us a breakdown of who Ahsoka is and what we need to know before the show starts?
Yeah, expert. Please let us know. I'm not an expert on anything. Ahsoka is a Filoni created character who is the Padawan of Anakin Darth Vader Skywalker. She was introduced in the Clone Wars. Yes. The Clone Wars is basically her story as far as I'm concerned. The movie, the Clone Wars movie, we get introduced to her in the very last 4-episode arc is her ending that goes parallel along with Revenge of the Sith, and we the whole seasons build up doing there is her story growing as a Jedi and her fall from grace and whatever. I mean, there's a lot of stuff mixed in there, but I've always felt that the A plot for the Clone Wars has been Ahsoka's story. I never hated the character. I always thought she was fairly interesting. But I get why some people do dislike her. I have some friends who just despise the character, despise her. But I get a little bit of solace in the fact that she's not a Disney creation. She's not like Rey or somebody like that. She is definitely a George Lucas approved character. She belongs in the original George Lucas canon, and that's the way it is. But I do understand that Filoni has it's been Ahsoka this, Ahsoka that. He inserts her in a lot of stuff, and she's kind of almost become like the main character of the entire franchise at this point. And I don't know how I really feel about that, because I'm a Darth Vader guy, and I feel like it's just been Ahsoka for the last 10, 15 years now. I think she's a cool character. And, I did watch the Rebels show, and I think this Ahsoka show is going to be just a season 5 for Rebels. We're definitely getting, it's the hunt for Ezra, and it's the hunt for Grand Admiral Thrawn. They're kind of like retconning the Timothy Zahn books, I think, in with this a little bit. And it's going to be an interesting little journey how they do that, because they're putting all kinds of stuff in here. They're putting that world between worlds stuff in there. We've seen that in the trailers. That's going to piss a lot of people off. It could do anything. They could do anything with this thing. So, yeah.
Well, want to give a quick shout out to Chris Gore in the chat. Chris, we're going to come on our show
definitely
sometime soon. Tom Connors, yeah. One of the interesting things here is that, so this is yet another Disney Plus series. They've been kind of infamous for losing money and dropping viewerships. The Mandalorian steadily went downhill. I don't think Andor performed particularly well. What's your prediction for the Ahsoka series? Do you think it could be a win for Lucasfilm?
My prediction? Pain. Nah, this is going to be... Look, I don't know if you saw the images from the quote-unquote premiere that they did at, I think it was Disney World or Disneyland, one of the two. And I think they had some influencers there and a few critics, and that's about it. It was a very empty screening. I don't see the large appeal for somebody like Ahsoka, because as you guys brought up, she was a Clone Wars character. Oh, we lost Odin. She was a Clone Wars.
I was just going to say Odin had a family
did he have to run?
Deal with? Yeah.
Okay.
So he wishes everyone the best, and be sure to check him out on OMB Reviews. His link is in the description.
Yes, do that. But yeah, I just don't see the big, huge appeal for a character like this, who most people haven't seen the Clone Wars cartoons or the Rebels cartoons, and I get it. They have an audience, they have their fans, but they're not the large general audience. And when it comes to Star Wars, all the general audience knows is the main stuff. So I don't think this is going to have the appeal that they think it's going to. And not only that, after Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think a lot of people checked out.
Yeah,
I think that was kind of it for a lot of folks. They're just like, yeah, no, I'm done with this.
But
yeah.
But everybody loved that other show that came out, right? Didn't everybody? What was it called? God, I can't remember the name of it.
Bad Batch?
No, that's actually pretty decent. The guy from Rogue One that they made the show about.
Andor.
Yeah,
Andor
everybody loved Andor.
It's the best show.
Nobody watched it though.
Everybody loved Andor. I hated Andor. I thought it was boring.
That's what I'm saying. Nobody watched that either.
Yeah.
So boring.
And I wonder if just as many people will watch this. And I get it. I mean, the EU, Clone Wars, Rebels fans will freak out if you tell them that, you know, they're not as popular as everything else, but it's just a fact. And most people don't know who Ahsoka is. They don't care who these characters are, especially if you've got a show where basically 90% of the people involved are saying, yeah, it would really help if you've seen Rebels. I mean, you've got a problem there. And that's the bigger issue with Marvel and stuff right now, is that people are like, I'm sick of having to do homework. And I think that's what turned a lot of people off when they went to see Doctor Strange, is they were expecting a sequel to No Way Home, and it ended up being a sequel to WandaVision. So, you know, it's just people don't want to have to do homework to be able to see a movie or anything like that. And I don't see this being a very popular show at the end of the day.
Well,
they're trying to amp it up with the Heir to the Empire stuff. I just don't think it's going to work, because Filoni is, I don't know, he's a false prophet in my opinion.
Those should have been the sequel trilogies that we didn't get. Those books.
Yeah.
So,
well, and somebody's going to do that with AI one of these days. So let me better than anything we got. So
let me throw this to Epic Mike. So if you were in charge of Lucasfilm, would you be making a series like Ahsoka, or would you be doing something different?
Oh boy, I was in charge of Lucasfilm. I tell you what, there'd be a lot of fired people. Ahsoka would have made a lot of sense if the movies were still going and they were doing well, and these properties were the property of Star Wars was thriving. I could see them saying, hey, I would have approved, yes, let's do a series about this character that people like, if there's more story to tell because of how she was in Rebels, and there could be some interesting stuff. I could tell you what, we wouldn't be retconning Heir to the Empire. We wouldn't be taking some of the most popular AU stuff and, you know, bastardizing it and changing it to fit what we want, which, once again, that's all they can really do. They don't have any original ideas. And any original ideas they have in the High Republic are things like a rock piloting a ship, and a guy like Matthew McConaughey who's a pilot. And you're like, wow, that's riveting stuff, guys. But in the state of Star Wars now, I think it's actually a miss. I think that you are just trying to stop the bleeding at this point. You know, you had something good with The Mandalorian. You couldn't even have waited till season 3 to have some of the payoff. They had to steal part of Boba Fett's show to do it, because they were just like, we just got to make something work, because they know that show was awful and didn't even have. It's obvious they didn't even have, what was it, 6 episodes? They didn't even have 6 episodes worth of content for Boba Fett. They like literally 2 episodes are just Mandalorian episodes. So it's obvious that they're just trying to stave the bleeding. And that means that they're writing it out of desperation, which means it's all going to be about fan service, and it's going to have nothing to do with quality writing. And that's why it'll be bad. Now, if they were in a position, if we were making movies and people were enjoying the films, and we were like, let's do some interesting series and try some different things with the expansion of Star Wars, sure, let's do an Ahsoka series, and it'll be for hardcore fans to give them something they can enjoy. But in this current state of Star Wars, no, I think it's a terrible, terrible decision. And I think it's absolutely going to be bad. And I think it's going to, the best that we're going to see of Ahsoka is going to be those first 2 episodes. And I think the rest of the series is going to be absolute garbage, just like they did with Mandalorian. I mean, now we're looking at it and they're going, well, the Mandalorian didn't just mean Din Djarin. It also meant, you know, any of these Mandalorian characters. I'm like, you know,
or whatever.
Bo-Katan, yeah, and stuff. You know, they're now at this point, they're just milking the franchise for what they can get out of it.
I mean,
you know,
that last episode of Rebels, if you watched it and you were invested in this series, they set up a future season like what they're planning here. That last thing where Ahsoka's there on the ledge, and Sabine turns around and she goes, "It's time. Let's go. Let's go find Ezra." And they fade off in the black or whatever it is. I don't remember. But you're like, oh man, I want to see that show. I remember watching that for the first time. It was like, when are we going to get this movie, or when are we going to get this series? And we're getting that series now. This is what this is, and I'm just so bland about it. And I'm upset, internally upset that is how I feel about something like this, because, once again, Disney, Lucasfilm have screwed the pooch so bad with everything that they've done, that they've turned old school fans like me into people who were kind of apathetic about it. It's like, I want to see it. I'm going to watch it. We're going to talk about it on this show every week. We're going to devote probably 15, 20 minutes to it for the next 6-7 weeks, or however long it's on. But I'm not sure how I feel about it going into this. And like you said, the first 2 episodes that they're releasing together are probably going to be kind of cool, kind of fun. They got to hook us. They got to get us in there. They know how to make good Star Wars in Disney World. They can do it. We saw Rogue One. There's some really good shit in there. They have people that can do it. But at the same time, I'm upset that I internally just don't trust Star Wars anymore. After the fiasco that was Kenobi, after they've completely screwed the pooch with the Mandalorian shows. I used to really be a huge fan of Dave Filoni. I thought he was supposed to be the heir apparent to George Lucas. I thought he was handpicked. But nowadays, I don't feel that way. I feel like he needs somebody there to help him along. He needs a Jon Favreau or somebody there to hold his hand and go, that's not how we don't make movies. We don't make live action like we make cartoons. Because I like some of the animated stuff. I like the Bad Batch. I think it's when you take the Bad Batch and you dial it down to like its core, like 8-9 episodes that tell the storyline that they're going through with the cloning stuff. It's really good. It's really good. But then you got all this extraneous bullshit attached to it, and that's been a problem with Filoni and Clone Wars all along. There's really good core stories, and then there's extraneous nonsense that you don't ever have to watch. There's a list out there that's like, you just have to watch these 12 episodes per 20 episode season, then you'll be fine. But yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Sort of. I want to see what they did with the story, but at the same time, I'm kind of wondering why they ever bothered, because it's not I don't know if it's the right time to be making this show. I think they need a complete reboot over there, but whatever.
I think so too. I agree.
So I'm going to throw this over to Brian. I know he's still at his computer somewhere.
Yeah,
so Brian, like you guys over at the Popcast, you're notoriously more Star Trek than Star Wars, but Shane has always been kind of like the Star Wars apologist. He's always like, well, let's wait for a bit and it's going to get better and all this other stuff. But he's recently been blackpilled on Star Trek. Is that going to happen with Star Wars too, where he's just going to start speaking the truth?
Yeah, Andor gave him some hope, but he was really looking forward to Boba Fett, and that didn't work out for us. And then he was really looking forward to the Kenobi show, and that was a disaster. So I think that Shane's gonna slowly go down the same black pill route, where he's like, let's give it a chance to. Shane is positive about everything initially. That's the way it always works. But as it continually just like runs itself into a brick wall repeatedly over and over and over again, I think he just and once you lose Shane, like you don't get him back. Like we'll all complain about it, but we'll give it a shot. Oh, this one's pretty good. But once you lose Shane, like he just checks out completely. And I think Star Wars is going to get him there for sure. It's already gotten there for me. I'm completely apathetic. I don't care at all about Ahsoka.
Well, you're watching it. You're watching it, okay?
Yeah, I'll watch it because we do the shows. But like, if we weren't on YouTube talking about it, would I watch it? No.
That seems to be one of the bigger problems. But since we got Tom on here and Epic Mike, I want to throw this out there. So we have heard from multiple behind the scenes sources. Yes, we do have sources, not fake sources like some people, but actual sources. We've heard from multiple different accounts that the real rot in Lucasfilm, aside from Kathleen Kennedy, is a person we know of quite well, Pablo Hidalgo. He seems to be at the center of pretty much every bad decision that Lucasfilm has been making since Force Awakens came out. And I wanted to get everyone's take on this. Like, do you think that if, okay, let's say Kathleen Kennedy continues to be in her position, but if they just got rid of Pablo Hidalgo, could we turn the ship around? Could Star Wars find new life? I just want to open this up to the panel.
I thought you meant me. Oh.
Go ahead, Tom. Go first.
Well, first of all, you're wrong. Pablo's gone, and so is KK. I'm part of KK Anon now, just so you know.
KK Anon.
Wrong.
KK Anon, yes. And not only is that true, the Acolyte is just a smokescreen. It's not really happening. No, I'm kidding. No, nothing's going to change this thing at this point. Pablo Hidalgo, Kathleen Kennedy, Dave Filoni, they're all heads of the same serpent at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, they're like King Ghidorah. Nothing is going to change. That's why I say, like, when people are like, well, how long do you think until, KK is gone? Do you think things are going to change? I said, no, nothing's going to change. The damage has already been done. Same thing here with Pablo. Who cares if he's gone or gets booted? It's not going to change anything.
Well, he is the de facto head of the Lucasfilm story group, right?
Mm-hmm.
But according to him, he doesn't dictate anything. All he does is tell them, he doesn't tell them how a dog plays basketball, just whether or not it can.
Well, he also has like veto power, apparently. Like he can say, like, no, we're not doing this idea. No, we're not doing this idea. So like he had, like, from what we've heard, he has squashed multiple kind of like pitches in which they could turn the ship around and do actual good Star Wars, because he doesn't like it. And he's really kind of the Darth Sidious of this whole situation, where he's the one behind the scenes, kind of like, we have it on we have a theory that he was the one behind Gina Carano getting fired. He's the guy behind the scenes who is basically taking out all the people that the fans like, right? And he's supposed to be like the historian and all that stuff. So I feel like a lot of our ire needs to be more directed towards him as opposed to Kathleen Kennedy, because we can't change what's going on with her. But I feel like a fan movement to get Pablo removed could actually do some good. What do you think, Epic Mike?
I think I would be really interested to see what, because I don't totally disagree with that idea, because it would be interesting to see if somebody got inserted in that position and actually was willing to push back against Kathleen or push back against leadership to say, no, let's do some of these ideas. Let's do some of these things to right the ship. Maybe that would help. Maybe that could, we could see things like that change. And I only say this because, and this is just my personal opinion, we just kind of saw something similar in Star Trek to when you actually let somebody have creative control that actually cares about the source material. I'm not saying that Picard season 3 was perfect. Okay. I know some people are just like, no, I hated it. It's garbage. I didn't hate it. I actually kind of enjoyed it. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the best Star Trek ever, but it was somebody that cared about the source material. There were obvious retcons to what happened before, and he was obviously trying to right the ship quite a bit, So I would be interested to see what Star Wars would look like. But at the same time, I remember I talked to a guy who was a producer who worked in Hollywood, and what he said to me kind of freaked me out a little bit. And this was early on in Star Trek or Star Wars. He said that Kathleen Kennedy is on like a holy crusade to change how Star Wars is fundamentally looked at, because she feels like it's her duty to raise women up and to strengthen women and to let women know that they matter, in the position that she's in. And we've seen that a lot too in how Star Trek Star Trek, excuse me, Star Wars has treated female characters and how they write female characters and stuff. So it does feel like it's a multiple headed Hydra. But I do think if you could insert somebody into the head of creativity, then we could at least see something get shaken up. And then we might even be in a position where if then that person gets fired because they're pushing back too much against leadership, now we actually would have some ammunition to use against Star Wars. But right now, yeah, I mean, Dave Filoni obviously he seems like he's kind of running on autopilot. Just keeps throwing Ahsoka into everything. Anytime he has an idea, he's just like, yeah, what about Ahsoka?
That's why.
Yeah.
That's what I said. Yeah, it's not even, and I agree with you. Kathleen Kennedy, I've heard that same kind of thing about her, and that's why I don't think Pablo's the only problem here. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
But I do think getting rid of somebody in Pablo's position, because also of all the people that have been the most antagonistic towards Star Wars fans, Pablo's the guy. Like, he obviously, he's gone on social media. He's gone after people on social media. He's ripped on people. He's obviously very antagonistic with the audience and stuff like that. So I do think that could maybe change things, but I think it would maybe start the domino effect of this whole thing falling apart, because I don't think there's any way to fix it in the current state it's in. I think it has to fall apart and be rebuilt back from the ground up. I think that Star Wars needs to be fundamentally wiped completely clean, and I think they have to start from zero and start to work their way back up again.
Agreed.
Hey guys, if you like this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and comment below on your favorite video as well. That goes a long way with helping us boost our channel and get out there in front of more people. And it lets YouTube know that we're doing something right. And if you want to catch us live, we go live 2 times a week, once on Saturdays at 10 a.m. Pacific time and on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. So join us there in the chat. We will see you on the live stream. Stay salty.